is David Evans. I can eat a full large pizza. And over here, we have Luke Reed and Alma Scott commit, all right? And we decided to research what birthmarks reveal about your health. There's two types of birthmarks. The first one is pigmented. That's just any kind of a cluster of different colored skin cells somewhere on your skin. So that can go anywhere from like, the size of a dollar bill on your arm or something to just a mole on your back or something like that. The second one is a vascular birthmark, which is where the blood vessels can be affected, and that can cause these, which are called port wine stains. Normally they appear on just one half of the face, and they're affected by extra blood vessel growth within the brain.
This is caused by a malfunction in the G protein signaling pathway and the G-coupled protein receptor kinase. And this error is found on the GNAQ gene, which is found on chromosome 9. And what this error is where the G protein is unable to have GTP bind to it, causing the conformational change. And since it's unable to bind to it and no conformational change, this causes an increased amount of blood vessels, which leads to the vascular birthmark forming on the face. Play a video.
Sturt-Weaver syndrome. Sturt-Weaver syndrome is a rare congenital neurocutaneous disorder. With congenital just meaning that the disorder is present at birth, neuro referring to certain brain findings, and cutaneous referring to certain skin findings. And interestingly, the brain and skin both originate from the same germ cell layer, the ectoderm, hence why there are several different genetic and acquired diseases that affect both of these systems. Now, unlike other neurocutaneous diseases, like tuberous sclerosis or neurofibromatosis, Sturt-Weaver syndrome is not a hereditary disorder. It actually occurs sporadically, and it's caused by a somatic activating mutation in the GNAQ gene, which codes for a guanine nucleotide binding protein. Now, the most distinctive physical finding in Sturt-Weaver syndrome is found on the face. So I'll pull up a little cartoon face here. And the finding is a purplish red birthmark called a port wine stain, which is usually on the forehead and upper eyelid on one side of the face. And the color can vary from light pink to deep purple, with the more purplish ones resembling the color of port wine, hence the name. And this is due to a malformation of capillaries, so in other words, it's an angioma, and it usually occurs in the skin around the ophthalmic branch of the trigeminal nerve of the face. Now, in addition to the port wine stain, there's also malformation of blood vessels in the pia mater of the brain on the ipsilateral, or the same side as the birthmark. And this is called a leptomeningeal capillary venous malformation, or a leptomeningeal angioma. And this can lead to calcification and loss of the nerve cells in the cerebral cortex. And these calcifications can actually be seen on radiographs of the head and are called tram track calcifications. And I'll pull up a picture of what this looks like here. Okay, so here is an example of what a head CT scan might look like for someone with Sturt-Weaver syndrome. So this would be the anterior or the front of the patient. This would be the posterior or the back of the patient's head. This would be the right side, and this would be the left side. So hopefully that helps to orient you a little bit. And here you can see these bright or hyperdense areas in the brain on the left side of the brain, so the ipsilateral side. You can see these calcifications, which are supposed to resemble tram tracks, kind of like this. So this is what tram track calcifications are referring to. And you can also see it a little bit here as well. Now, there are several neurological symptoms that are related to these brain malformations, including seizures, hemiparesis, or muscle weakness on one side of the body, developmental delays, and mental retardation. And a large proportion of these patients will also develop glaucoma, which is an optic neuropathy associated with increased intraocular pressure. Basically, there's a large buildup of pressure in the fluid that fills the eye, and this can lead to damage to the optic nerve and vision loss. Now, the diagnosis of Sturge Weber is based primarily on just the finding of the port wine stain on the face
Talk in the microphone.
and the leptomeningeal angioma in
Ryan.
the brain. So in other words, these findings are...
Okay, so here's a picture, another picture of the brain. She just went over this. But more than 1 in 10 people have a vascular birthmark, and so we thought it'd be important to look at some of the causes or some of the effects of having a vascular birthmark. And I mean, I've never heard of Sturge-Weber syndrome, so I figured a lot of people hadn't. And one of the most interesting things that I learned was that the port wine stain, whatever side of the face that it's on, it typically causes seizures just on that side of the face, which, you know, normally you learn about the brain that the right side controls the left side controls the right side, but it's actually on the same side. Other than that, the guanine nucleotide protein obviously is an important cell signaling pathway, and without it, without the GTP binding to it correctly, then we obviously get extra blood vessel growth in our brain, which can cause Sturge-Weber syndrome.